Welcome to Email After Hours by Senderscore, powered by Validity.
We're your hosts. My name is Guy Hansen.
And I'm Danielle Gallant, and this is Email After Hours.
So for anyone who's watched email evolve over the last decade, you know that the job is not just building an email and hitting send anymore. It is designing for everything from an iPhone to a smartwatch to a smart speaker. So it's going to be a real treat to talk to someone who doesn't just keep up. He actually builds for the future, and open source is half of it.
That's right. Joining us today, we've got Jay Oram. He's head of development at Action Rocket. And Jay leads the coding and solutions team that turns out-of-the-box emails into new technology. He's a regular on the conference circuit. Say hello to Dreamforce, most recently Litmus Live. And he's a champion of email as a two-way conversation, as are we. And optimizing for AI, but, remembering that at the end of the day, your primary task is still to delight real human beings. Welcome back to the show, Jay. It's so great to be chatting with you again.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's great to be on and talking to you both. Yeah.
And as usual, we're going to start off with an icebreaker question. You've done your fair share of conference speaking, like Guy said, pretty recently, our Litmus Live event. And so have we, of course. And there's always like a question and answer period that's part of most presentations. And sometimes, maybe I'm outing myself here, but sometimes you're going to get a question that really catches you off guard. So what's the weirdest question that's ever been put to you in a Q&A?
So I talk a lot about interactive emails, making emails do things that most people think aren't possible. And I think the weirdest question I ever had at the end of like a half an hour talk was someone came up and they said, so all of that you just made up, right? None of that's actually possible. I had to reassure them that yes, it was possible and they were all real things. But yeah, that was definitely the weirdest question of someone who sat the whole way through a talk about email development and then questioned everything. So
you couldn't make it up. If we stay with the conference theme for just a moment, what topics are you finding are the ones that are drawing the most attention right now?
I mean, it covers a really broad spectrum. So I cover quite a lot as the head of dev at Action Rocket. So sometimes people are talking about accessibility, sometimes it's interactivity. We still talk about personalization like we did at Litmus Live. So those topics kind of come up quite a lot. But yeah, there's loads of other subjects and obviously AI as well.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. I mean, the last couple of conferences I've been to, it just feels like AI has completely taken over pretty much every conversation in every session. Are you getting a sense of that too?
I am, but then also when I spoke at Dreamforce, obviously was completely surrounded by people talking about Agentforce and AI and using AI technology and everything. Yet my talk was just about the fundamentals of email design and what you should be putting in there and things like that. So I didn't really cover any AI. And in the end, that was like the third most watched talk in the whole of the conference. So that people want the content, which is the basics and everything that you need to know, as well as the new thing, which is AI. But yeah, most people need the basics, don't they?
That's such an interesting point you make, and I find it as well. So, do you think there's actually maybe a bit of a gap between the shiny trends and the real pain points that email marketers are trying to deal with as part of their day jobs?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we day to day, we're talking about Gmail not rendering this. I want to pull in this piece of data, my ESP. I want to do this in my ESP. How do I do this in Braze? How do I do this in Salesforce, etc.? Occasionally we get the question of, we're looking at an MCP server to do this thing, or we want to look at AI agents to let us do this extra thing that we want to do on top. But actually 99% of the time it's normal personalization, segmentation, and email coding in my main role.
I think it's fair to say we're all fans, at least, of email. And as Guy said at the beginning, you really want it to be a two-way communication channel. So often it is just receiving, right? Subscriber only, and there's no way back. And so here I want to talk about the reply address. So why do you think brands are still afraid of, or maybe just avoiding, a reply at email address versus a no reply? And how does embracing replies actually help build, brand trust and improve deliverability?
I mean, I can talk from deliverability from my point of view, but you guys are definitely the experts on that side of things. But from like a brand trust and just a general marketing point of view, and not being able to reply to an email is such a hard thing to do. And you want to reply and ask questions and talk to people. So for someone receiving an email, it kind of makes sense that you want to reply and ask questions. But from a marketer's point of view, from everyone I've spoken to, the real worry is volume. So if you are a one-person marketer sending to a list of, even if you send to just a list of 1,000 people, what if only 10% of them reply? That's, you've got 100 people that you've got to then reply to. And if you're sending 5 emails a day, that's 50 people a day you've got to reply to. So that worry, I think, is part of the bigger issue. And then the other part is just, what are people going to ask? What are people going to ask if you send out your latest sale? Like, I've worked in customer service when I was working for an outdoor brand that was online equipment, and we used to send a weekly email that had like a sale on it, and then immediately we'd get emails from people that just bought something that said, "Oh, I've just bought that, but you've just put it in the sale, so can I get my money back, or can I swap it, or can I do things like that?" So that people in the customer service side of things are already getting those replies. Imagine if you're the marketer sending an email, then you get all those replies as well, and must possibly even at a higher volume. That's a crazy thing to kind of get your head around. So AI could help with those, with automated replies, with replies that say things like, this inbox isn't manned 24/7, but we'll get back to you within 24 hours, setting up an automated reply like that, and making sure those emails get funneled towards your customer support team if you have that possible. Things like that are all things to be thinking about. But from a brand trust point of view, right, I want to reply to an email and then a human reply to me and say, "Oh, don't worry, I'm sorting that out right now. I'm on it. We know there's a problem." All those kind of things are definitely something that we would suggest. And from a delivery point of view, the more engagement you get, the better email clients such as Gmail or Apple Mail or whoever it is, they know that there's a real person at the end of that email sending emails. So as far as I know, the more engagement you get and the more replies you get, the higher inbox placement, the more engagement you're going to get. You're going to go to primary tab, for example, if that's your focus or things like that. So it doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't have a reply address. I think it's just been baked in for so long that people had a no reply for their marketing emails that no one's even thought about it, right?
Totally. It was kind of like a set it and forget it type thing. But I will also comment here that in our January State of Email webinar, where we do predictions for what might be coming this year, one of my professional services colleagues, I believe, called out, I think bye, no reply was the actual prediction because mailbox providers like Microsoft make recommendations about best practices, what to do, and best practices over the last couple of years, there's been a track record of those being solidified as requirements. So there are deliverability benefits, but also I think we kind of have to get on board with some of these things before we're scrambling. Like, when will we learn?
100%. Joe, I feel like one of the great things about your role as head of development is that it means that, you don't necessarily have to sit around waiting for new solutions to be built. In some cases, you can make them happen. And I think, from our previous conversations, we know that you've built an impressive library of tools, accessibility checkers, HTML testing apps, placeholder generators. I want to ask you, when you sit down to create something new, what's that process like for you? I mean, do you start with wanting to fill a gap or address a need that you've spotted?
The main thing is that it's probably something that I'm already trying to figure out myself, or someone has asked me to figure out. So placeholders has been something that we've needed for forever in email development, from what I can remember, especially with email design systems where we're putting an image in there and it's going to hold the gap that it needs to be. People want to know what size it should be, if it could be a GIF, it could be a PNG, etc. So all of those things are things that we wanted to include. And there's been placeholders around for ages on the web for the web developers, but no one had created one that was email specific. So on different email testing suites, some of the web development email placeholders were blocked, so then none of the images would show up. Some of them, because they were used so widely, had a really bad reputation as a URL. So then when you sent yourself tests, it went straight to spam, and it was all just because of the placeholders. So for that one specifically, it was thinking about, what can I build that means that we could just test the things that we want to test and fix those things that are specific to email. Things like, no one in the web development world believes that a GIF wouldn't play, but we know that a GIF only shows the first frame in Outlook on Windows. So building a placeholder where the frames have a number, so 1, 2, 3, etc., means that automatically you can see which email client is showing the first frame of your GIF, and then that's easy with a placeholder. So things like that are email specific or border radius, like we can't have circular corners on some email clients, so why not build a placeholder that has that built in rather than having to code it? So all those kind of little things that are specific to email. And then the same with the testing one, like you want to send yourself tests, you want to send MJML, you want to send some AMP code, you want to send total random stuff that actually maybe you don't want to put on a third-party tool or something like that. So I just built myself a tester that I could test random stuff, essentially, and no one will judge me on what I'm trying to test. That's probably the most important thing.
I love it. And you say all those little things, but have you ever built something that started small, maybe just like a quick fix for one of your own workflows, but actually ended up taking off in a much bigger way than you expected, maybe?
Oh yeah, massively. So we, like a long time ago, we built a quick live image generator thing for a poll for a Pizza Express email where you could vote on your favorite calzone or something like that. And honestly, it was like, it's just a fun idea. We'll just build it once. No one's ever going to want this functionality again. Like, it's not something that's going to happen. And so we built it, and then obviously everyone saw it, loved it. Then they wanted like an extra bit. Oh, could we add this personalization? Could we add this dynamic? Could we bring it into Salesforce? Could we? And all of a sudden, we've built this massive thing internally that can do all the bells and whistles that we never even thought of.
I love that. You're just like yes-anding whatever request comes your way. That's great.
Yep.
Accessibility. Let's go to accessibility. It seems to run through pretty much everything you build, but you approach it as less of a checklist and more of as like a design philosophy. So tell us why accessibility is so core to you, and maybe why do you think the industry still misunderstands it?
So for myself, I have lots of friends that have accessibility issues or things like visual problems or audio problems and things like that. So lots of my friend base, they talk about these things regularly. So I hear about when there's problems, when apps don't work, when they get an email and the font's so small they can never read it and things like that. So before even, like, it's not even like I'm just thinking, I'm building it for my mates. And as soon as you think that, or you think of your family member or your, my mum probably won't listen to this podcast, hopefully, but her text size on her phone is massive, right? So I'm always thinking, if I build this email and I'm going to send it to my mum, is she actually going to be able to read it? And if she is the target customer, I want her to be able to read it, but also to action it and click on the button or go to the link or find out the latest information. So as soon as you flip it and think like that, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't build for accessibility. And I think it's only misunderstood because a lot of people think it's really difficult. But I think the reason it is difficult is because you have this idea in your head of what you want an email to be. And then someone comes along and says, oh, you have to make this bigger. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. Whereas, they're always seeing the negatives of accessibility. Whereas if you start off with, oh, well, I just have to make it work for everybody. And you're already thinking about that. And your designers already know that. And the people who are writing your copy know that. And they're not throwing in acronyms and big marketing words that normal people don't understand and stuff like that. As soon as you have that to begin with and your whole team is thinking about accessibility, then it's really easy. But yeah, the misunderstanding, I think, is when you go on the myriad of websites like Really Good Emails, Email Love, etc., that show cool emails, and you want that, but you don't know that maybe it's not accessible to everybody. Then when someone says, oh, you need to do something different, I think it's really heartbreaking, isn't it? Because you see this thing and you want to do it, and then you're like, oh, we can't do it it doesn't really fit to everybody. So if that is the case, then maybe you shouldn't be sending it at all. So it is hard to measure. Yeah. And there's loads of quotes around there. Like in the UK, I think 1 in 5 people have some kind of accessibility. There's across the world, there's like $20 billion worth of income, of like disposable income to people that have accessibility needs. So it's not like it's a small portion of your market as far as I'm concerned. So it should be part of anything you think of. Yeah. Why would you ignore 20% of your market from the beginning?
Totally. And we've said on the podcast before, one of the questions that comes up when we're presenting to a client, like the email maybe doesn't meet certain accessibility standards in this way. They're like, well, I wonder how much of my audience actually. And it's like, what a weird.
It is weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like Sarah Gallardo talks a lot about accessibility, and one of the things I really like that she said is, if you're sending emails that are not accessible, then the people that can't access them are not reading your emails anymore. So you've already blocked out your audience. So you really have to claw back your accessibility then, and you need to reach out to those people again. So yeah, it might be, oh, none of my audience have user-assistive screen readers, or none of them have accessibility, but it's probably because you've already stopped them being able to receive your emails anyway. You've already kind of sidelined them before you've even given them a chance. So yeah, I strongly believe that if people even think that only 10% of their list needs accessibility changes, whatever, then there's probably a larger portion of your audience that you're missing out on that have already given up on you because you haven't made your emails accessible.
Totally. And I think that there are some elements that most brands have at least wrapped their head around when it comes to accessibility design. But there are areas that fewer people think about, but it doesn't make them any less important. So you talked about like typography, line height, and even how emails sound when they're read by a voice assistant, which is such an interesting thought experiment. But these are areas that many teams just never think about. How do you start thinking about that? Why do you think people aren't going through this checklist?
I mean, email's hard, right? Everyone knows email is hard. So getting an email out the door that just works is a miracle in itself sometimes. So if you then have to add on all these other things, you're kind of creating more work for yourself. So I've seen before, you've been big proponents of email design systems. So getting things tested, getting things set up first. We are as well at Action Rocket. And we say, your business as usual emails, you're probably going to send those from a template. So why not spend that time that you're creating that template, making sure it's as accessible as possible? And then you can work through that list. So the typography is an easy one, where most likely you're going to want to pick a sans serif font. The line height should be at least 1.5. And then how it sounds and how it's read by a voice assistant, module by module or section by section, can actually be broken down really easily. So one section could be a table, say it's a receipt and it's a data table. So you're going to format that in a certain way to make sure that table is read out correctly by a voice assistant. But then maybe you're using a table to format something because Outlook's being weird. So then you need to treat that slightly differently so that it doesn't get read out like a table, because they don't want the voice assistant reading out column 1, row 1, picture of your logo, column 2, row 2, title. Like, no one wants that read out to them. So yeah, that's just something you should be taking into account. Litmus on the testing tool has the ability to listen to your email. So if you're using Litmus, you can literally put your email in and listen to it straight away. There's lots of other tools that are free. Every single device comes with some kind of voice assistant. So yeah, if you've got a Mac or a Microsoft laptop, then it's already there. You literally just turn it on one day and listen to your email and just decide whether it works, because most of the time it's okay. Like, most of the time you can pretty much figure out what it says. But if you're listening to an all image email that just says, download images to read, download images to look, download images like that, obviously that you can then experience that and realize that it's not very good.
I smell another podcast episode for us where
listen to your emails.
Have that happen. That'd be so good.
Yeah, but that's like there's so many things you have to think about. So I understand why teams can't think about it for every single send. So if you can get it for your email design system or your templates or your layouts that you use regularly, then that is an amazing win, and you can spend your time working on those because you're going to get the positives from that for a very long time. Lots of email design systems last for 2 years, 3 years, and you've only got to develop it once. So work on that, spend the time doing that, and you'll fix 90% of your issues. And when you want to do one-off bespoke emails, because you've spent all that time doing your templates or your designs, you can spend that extra time making sure those bespoke, crazy emails that you want to send are accessible as well. So yeah, or you can hire an agency to do it,
I've got to tell you, when you were talking about your mom, I was having a wry laugh to myself because I was thinking about my mom. And she's 92 now. Her biggest accessibility issue is just that she refuses to use a smartphone, full stop. So that creates its own challenges. Um, continuing with this theme, though, so, the question of how AI is now starting to read and summarize email content has been a huge talking point recently, and I think it's become an even bigger one with Gmail's announcement of the Gemini integration that's now starting to happen. And it poses a question, doesn't it? Because, now email senders have got to design for an AI reader, but they've also got to keep their human reader in mind as well. And, how do you find the balance between those two different requirements who don't necessarily look for the same thing?
Yeah. Weirdly, a lot of the good best practices for accessibility kind of already set you up for a really good win with AI summaries. So if your email has text that is split out into readable sections where you've got titles and text and call to actions, those things are what AI is going to pick up on. So any live text, anything like that, it's going to read it. So that's great. If your email, is full of images, and some AI summaries don't read alt text, so they will just completely ignore your images. In that case, they're not going to get the information they need. So they're going to try and find that information somewhere. And I remember the first few times that people were sharing their emails that were all image and AI was summarizing them. The summary was literally like, here's our privacy policy and here is how you unsubscribe, because that was the only piece of live text in their email. So I think that's obviously not great. So making sure you're just following that normal, and make sure you've got some live text. If you've got some text in images, make sure you repeat it somewhere in the live text so that someone can pick it up. And then, by breaking it up semantically with headings, paragraphs, links, AI can break that down as if it's a machine thinking about it. So it's fine. And designers they're starting to pick up on these things. So I think it's okay.
I want to ask, when it comes to your guidance of use more text, and I know that you've got a slightly contrarian opinion on this. And what I mean by that is only that, for the longest time, we've said to email senders, don't use hidden text because filters don't like it very much. But actually, there's quite a strong argument that hidden text can actually be used positively to solve for this very challenge, can't it?
Yeah, so we worked with a fintech company that was really struggling with AI summarizing their emails. So they were going in, summarizing it, and then it was just getting the wrong end of the stick. So it was saying like, you've got $5,000 off, or, you've got 50% off of something. And that wasn't what the email was saying, but some reason the email was summarizing what was there. So they really needed to know, how can we give information to the AI tools that are doing it? How can we do that? And we played around and tried to see what text AI was picking up on. And what we realized was that it really does take into account your subject line, your preview text, or the text that is kind of the first part of the text of your email. And then generally it tends to summarize from the top of your email down. So with that information, and we knew it was reading the hidden preview text, we have the preview text, and then you have that breaking the spaces hack that stops the the rest of your email bleeding into the inbox. And then after all those spaces, we just put in a short summary that was specifically for AI, so that we could kind of summarize the email ourselves, put it in a nice few characters, give it all the information it needed. And by doing that, the summaries just became accurate 95% of the time. So we just, by adding hidden text after your preview text space within that kind of div or container that is hidden, you're giving information to the AI that only the AI can read because it's doing it programmatically. And then you haven't got to worry about the rest of your email. Obviously, if you've got a long email and there's lots of text in there and there's lots of things you want to talk about, trying to summarize it in 100, 150 characters or something is very difficult. So it's probably still going to have to figure out some of the content. But if you've got one reason for sending the email, there's one piece of content in there, there's one big thing that you want to get across, then adding some hidden text after all that spacing hack to be like, this email is about a 50% off deal for people during Black Friday, then that will summarize it exactly as you wanted it to. So we've had real good success with that across loads of different clients and loads of different email clients as well, where they're summarizing things.
That's awesome. I think we're on this topic talking about summarization, designing for emails being read aloud by voice assistants or even on smartwatches. And I think you've said, before that most marketers are still designing emails like it's 2015, which I can't believe how long ago that is now. Desktop version, mobile version, like full stop, we're good. But how should we be rethinking design and content for a multi-device, multi-sensory reality that we're living in now?
So like we said before, having text that is readable and good is really helpful and breaking it up semantically. But then, so that is going to help someone reading it from an accessibility point of view. It's going to help someone no matter what the screen size. If you're creating an email that is responsive, so that it actually changes no matter what size the screen is, then that's amazing. So there's much more opportunity to customize it depending on the size of your screen. But then also knowing that, when the first Apple Watch came out, they brought out the Apple Mime type for watches, which never took off, thankfully. But it was another version of the email that you could send specifically for Apple Watches. And then it's now, I mean, it probably is 10 years since the Apple Watch came out. It's quite a long time. And since then, everybody I know has a smartwatch. So they either have an Apple Watch, they have a Google Pixel Watch, their Fitbit is telling them something. So all of those places are people where they're receiving the email, and whether that's the subject line and preview text or they're physically opening it. And it's important that you test it in these places as well. So we know that Apple just shrinks your email. So it just makes it smaller. So that's kind of fine with responsive. Google Pixel actually strips all of the images and just shows the text. So already, if you're sending an all image email, you're not going to get anything in that inbox. But also another thing it does is kind of strip the styling of the text. So it's not as obvious where the heading is and the text is and the call to action is. And the links become kind of big buttons that you can click on. So they're retaking what you've done and changing it. So if you know your audience is young enough that they would have a smartwatch, then think about that they would possibly be reading all your emails on a smartwatch, or even just, I know it's been said a million times, right? But you have the 8 seconds or the 15 seconds when someone opens the email to think about it. I don't know if that's actually true or what the number
15
is.
seconds would be a luxury.
A few seconds, exactly. So if you're like running along or walking to drop your kid off at school or whatever it is, and an email pops up on your watch and you try and read it and it's shrunk so small that you can't see it, or the text makes no sense, then straight away you're just going to like mark it as read and never look at it again. And the email marketer never even sees that it's been opened in the inbox. So there's a huge opportunity there where you can just test it, make sure it looks okay, see what it does. And same again, you can do it with your template, you can do it with your fonts. Like, it doesn't have to be every single email. So just think about it for everybody now. There's so many more places that people can read and digest email. Even smart speakers read emails now. So, make sure you're optimizing for that as well.
I get it, right? How overwhelming it can be when we think about just the sheer number of ways that an email can be displayed, can be read, can be seen. It's hard, but which principles do you think hold true no matter what the device or the context? What's always going to be appropriate?
Clear, concise text that tells the user exactly what you're trying to say in the email. And I used to be a proponent of, single topic emails. I know now that it depends on your audience, etc. But if you can test it, and a single topic email with a very clear headline, a short description, and a call to action is the top of your email, then that is the best thing you can start with that will cover every single device, no matter what accessibility or what you're reading it on or how it looks. As long as you've got the font size big enough that people can read it, or it's given space so that it can get bigger or smaller depending on what someone's settings are, then that is a really good principle to start with. And then you can go and add all the bells and whistles afterwards. You can make it all interactive and fancy for Upper Mile if you want to, but as long as that bit of text at the top says exactly what you want it to, then that's where you should start. I don't know about the whole 80% text, 20% image rule, or whatever it is that people kind of quote on how true that is, but making sure that majority of your email is clear text that people can read and digest in any way they want to is probably where I would start.
Agreed.
So, I can't believe it, but as we have this conversation, we're already well into the new year. But, in our world of email, the rate of change just feels absolutely relentless. And I don't know about you, but for me, I'm literally checking my crystal ball every single day, trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So let me put that to you, Jay. What's front of mind with you right now? And, where do you think the next big leap's going to come from?
I think AI, I hate it. I hate saying it, but AI is being integrated into every email client, right? So in whatever format it is integrated, whether that's Gemini or Apple Mail or Siri, kind of summarizing whatever's going on, that they are going to take your information and they're going to present it in a different way that you're not used to. So you just need to make sure your information is all there and is clear and is easy for a machine to read. And I think that is something that is going to prove fruitful for every email marketer throughout the year. And no matter how many, Frixer or Inbox AI or any of those fancy apps, they're all doing the same thing. They're all taking your content and trying to make it summaries and digestible for whoever is looking at it. And you just want to make sure your message gets through in all of that. So that's kind of front of mind at the moment from a email marketer point of view. From a developer point of view, using those tools ourselves to make things more efficient. So using tools that will take designs and create code, or making coding easier, or things like that, or using agents to go away and fix things while I work on something else, is all things I'm also thinking about. And then another thing which also is not something that was on my bingo card for 2026, but is something that I've known about for a long time, is I know that there's a large amount of movement about open tracking pixels and tracking and opting into data and things like that, which has been hanging around for a long time and a lot of people have been talking about, but no actual legislation or laws have enforced it anywhere. So it's kind of just been brushed aside a little bit. But I think a new thing that's going to come in, apart from all this AI and other stuff, is that we're now going to have to ask permission a lot more if we're going to use open tracking, especially in France, where they're bringing out legislation pretty soon. And then across Europe as well, where Germany, they had the opt-in for using personal data in marketing and things like that. So a lot of companies are now realizing that what we kind of got away with before is something that we do need to ask permission for. And if we want that information, we need to ask permission for it, and more legislation and more things like that are coming out. So that is another thing that we're going to have to deal with by the end of the year, I would think, just to add to everyone's plate,
Well, I kind of love that though, because I feel like we all had more permissioning, more asking on the bingo card for years. And then we just got like so fed up of never being able to call bingo that we were like, okay, we're done with it. So it's a good thing. Jay, this conversation has been awesome. So practical, so helpful. And really, there's some ideation in there too. I love it. So we're going to start to wrap up now. And just like we opened with an icebreaker, I want to end with a closing question. If you could build one dream tool tomorrow, something that would make maybe every email developer's life 10 times easier, or maybe just your life 10 times easier, what would it be and why?
Imagine if when you were writing code for an email, while you was writing it, someone said that bit's not going to work in Outlook. Or you're writing it and it said, hang on a minute, that bit could work in Gmail, but actually this is not going to work in Outlook. So not only are you writing the code and getting that feedback while you're doing it, but also at the end, when you finish that email, there's just a line of things at the bottom that says, this is all cool, but you do know that this font is not going to show in Gmail, or this is not going to work. And then automatically, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And then you can send it and test it, and then you won't be surprised or downtrodden when it happens. So if that thing existed, it would be worth a lot of money to me and my whole team, and probably every developer.
+1 to Danielle's comments about what a great conversation this has been today. And I think all our listeners in the email marketing space are going to take a load of value out of the guidance that you've been giving over the last 30 minutes or so. Joe, for listeners who are interested in connecting with you, learning more about your work, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So LinkedIn is probably the best way, but also my email address is just j@actionrocket.co. So it's really simple. And as you can probably tell, I'm quite happy to talk about email nonstop, especially if it's email development. So anyone wants to talk email, just reach out and I'm guaranteed to have a chat with you. Those are probably the best places to find me.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. And to our listeners, be sure to tune in next time. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.org. That's where all the previous episodes live and a load more resources to help you become even stronger senders.
Guy and I are always super proud of the guests who join us on Email After Hours, and we're always looking for new guests to feature on future episodes too. So if you'd like to join us on an upcoming episode, drop a comment, ping us on LinkedIn, or send us an email at emailafterhours@validity.com. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks' time.
Wow. Thanks. Be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.com for loads more great resources to help you become a stronger sender.
To all you sleepless senders out there, thank you for joining us after hours, and see you next time.